Three major American polls have put Donald Trump and Kamala Harris in a dead heat as we head towards the U.S. presidential election with just over a week to go. And I mean just. People on both sides of the border are keeping a close watch, including, of course, Canada's former ambassador to the United States, Frank McKenna. Frank McKenna, so nice to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I want to start on the U.S. election. You, of course, were Canada's ambassador to the U.S. What are you watching for over the next week or so in terms of how it could affect Canadians, but what you think might happen?
Well, obviously, we always look for an October surprise, although that's unlikely. No, I think both parties will try to close strong. In the case of the Democrats, they really have to energize their base. They've got a wide advantage on gender with young people, so they've got to get these people out to vote, African Americans, Asian Americans, etc. And in the case of Trump, they've got to keep him on message if they can and really talk about the economy and immigration. Those seem to be by far and away the most salient issues, and I think that's what he'll stress.
Are you surprised that it is, I mean, there was a New York Times poll on Friday that said it was a tie. Are you surprised that it's this close?
I am, truthfully, but I've come to develop huge respect for Trump's resilience. With all the court cases against him, convicted felon, more allegations every day, another one around groping just in the last day, et cetera, et cetera. He really is a Teflon person, and he seems to be able to ride through all of it. It almost looks like his support level is around 45, 46 at the bottom end and 45, 46 at the top end. His voters are just locked in. And I would have thought that with all of the, what some people use the term PTSD around Trump, that it would not be this close. But on the other side, Rosie, incumbent governments are falling like flies everywhere. Yeah. And the vice president is part of an incumbent government, so it's not surprising. We were in the cave for 2 full years. We've come out around COVID. We've come out blinking our eyes, and we're hungry, and we're not particularly in a good mood. And incumbent governments have been paying quite a price for that.
So let's talk about both possibilities in terms of concerns for Canada. A Kamala Harris presidency, what would be, do you think, potential irritants or concerns if she were to become president?
Well, I think it would not be conflict-free. We would still have softwood lumber. We would still have some chippiness around getting access to dairy and some other arguments. And I think her administration would have a lot of bones to pick with Mexico, which has really turned into a halfway house for China, moving cheap production into the United States. So it would not be conflict-free, but the tone at the top would be very good. And I would say, generally speaking, it would be business as usual. So if it was a Harris presidency, I think it would be status quo, business as usual.
So what about a Trump presidency, and particularly a second Trump presidency, and particularly given some of the language he's been using in the past couple of weeks, Mr. McKenna?
Rosie, the real challenge with a Trump presidency is, number one, we need to respect the choice of Americans. So we should never opine on the decisions they make, but we can talk about the consequences for us. The problem with the second presidency is that he has now pledged that he will not have anybody with a foot on the brakes. It's going to be all gas. So the kind of people that he will have, Miller, Navarro, Eyehauser, these are all ideological warriors with Trump. And so they will, in all likelihood, do what they say they will do. And that means tariff barriers, both symmetric and asymmetric. It means a mass deportation campaign. It means an attack on world multilateral institutions, probably has real implications in terms of tax competitiveness and in terms of environmental standards. So a lot of issues that are extraordinarily consequential for Canada.
And how should Canada be preparing for that? Certainly, we've seen from the Liberal government an ability to deal with Trump, but as you say, perhaps a different kind of Trump this time around if he were to win.
Yeah, no, this will be Trump unleashed. But again, the United States has its own safeguards, and there's a decent chance we'll have a divided Congress. There's no doubt the Senate will flip to the Republicans because the math is strongly in their favor. But the House may flip to the Democratic side, which means that we'll have a natural check and balance. And there are always governors and there are senators and business leaders and union leaders and civil society leaders, all of whom act as some form of brake. So what we need to do is what we're doing is really arm up in Canada, be ready. The government of Canada, I know, has got a full-scale initiative underway. Provinces have as well. Mm-hmm. We need to be or bipartisan here. It needs to be a Team Canada approach, not only across the political spectrum, but everything from unions to management to premiers, governors, cousins to cousins, relatives to relatives, friends to friends. We need an all-of-Canada approach to make sure that we can avoid some of the worst effects. And remember, it's not like we're looking for anything. We are a massive trade partner of the United States, from most times the biggest in the world, and the trade is almost evenly balanced. Mm-hmm. So we are good for the United States as they are for us, right. And we need to keep emphasizing that.
I want to ask you two domestic questions. Hopefully you'll bite. The first is, back in August, you were on a podcast, I believe, and you said that after you saw Joe Biden step down, you thought Justin Trudeau might do the same. You know that he's had a challenging week with his caucus. What do you make of what's happening inside the federal Liberal Party?
Yeah, I've been wrong. Obviously, I did think that he would step aside. And the other thing that he has to contemplate is that this really is going to be a difficult situation, no matter what the merits of his leadership are. Incumbents are in trouble everywhere. We just saw a massive repudiation of an incumbent government in New Brunswick, and really a pretty significant repudiation of an incumbent government in British Columbia, and a government in Saskatchewan that's in a very competitive race. I think it's a tough time to be an incumbent, and he's got to realize that, and realize that 10 years is a long, long time. Sure. In today's world of scrutiny in social media. So I thought for all of those reasons he would leave. And I guess in my heart of hearts, I still think that after the U.S. election, that he'll have his moment of contemplation and might well leave.
And so that brings me to my other question that you alluded to there, your home province, where you were premier, first ever woman premier, a Liberal. What did you make of that, other than a rejection, as you say, of an incumbent government? I imagine you were delighted with that news.
Well, to start with, Premier Higgs deserves accolades for his fiscal management, and New Brunswickers respected him for that. New Brunswick is at heart a centrist province that likes good fiscal management and a socially progressive agenda. But he did draw New Brunswick into some of the cultural wars that we see south of the border. Susan Holt did a masterful job of saying that she will respect balanced budgets as a fiscal anchor, but invest in badly needed areas such as healthcare and housing. She did a masterful job. And I have to say, Rosie, I don't usually do this, but I stayed up and watched her acceptance speech on election night. It was the best I've ever heard. I think this young woman's going to be respected on the national stage as her career develops.
Frank McKenna, always nice of you to make the time. Come back anytime. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.